And pushing buttons. Here we are. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. And joining me today, as he does every other Wednesday, Dan Wos. Dan, of course, author. You can see it there right over his shoulder, and I'll grab one of my copies, hold it up here. Author of the Good Gun, Bad Guy series of books. I happen to have edition 2 right up here. Although I could reach over, I could grab edition number 1. It just doesn't show up real well in front of a green screen. But Dan is here. He's also got the Loaded Mic radio show to talk about. Dan, thanks for coming along for the ride today, man.
Oh, anytime, Paul. You know that we have a great conversation. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's actually, before we actually do get into the news, I need to remind everybody, if you're watching live on YouTube or on Facebook, you can comment on the YouTube or the Polite Society podcast Facebook feed. We'll get those comments right away. If you're anywhere else, you need to go to those. You need to go to those feeds to get your comment on the air. We're on Rumble, we're on Getter, we're on OpsLens. We're all over the place, but the only place I get live comments is from Facebook and YouTube. Let's go ahead and get started, Dan. And one more, I've upgraded where I'm going to say my aggregator. So if you know of somewhere else that you would think it would be cool to watch the show, just let me know in the comments, and I'll look into getting the show live on those feeds as well. But our first story, Dan, this one I got off of thecentersquare.com. Governor Pritzker out of Illinois thinks there are limits to the Second Amendment. There's a lawsuit that's going forward this week, and then the story reads: Illinois ban on certain semi-automatic firearms and magazines is set for a hearing in East St. Louis federal court Wednesday afternoon. That's this afternoon. Governor J.B. Pritzker signed the Protect Illinois Communities Act on January 10th. The measure bans all sales of more than 100 semi-automatic rifles, shotguns, and handguns, and bans the sale of magazines over 10 rounds for rifles and 15 rounds for handguns. All grandfathered firearms legally purchased before the ban are required to register with the Illinois State Police by the beginning of next year. Illinois has about 2.4 million firearms owner ID card holders. A requirement to buy and own firearms in Illinois. Active and retired police officers and others in law enforcement and security sectors are exempt from the weapons ban. To start with, Dan, I expect these lawsuits to be successful, meaning I expect the bans to go away, but they're active for right now. You have to have been writing on this. What's your thoughts on the whole thing?
Yeah, I'm working on something right now because the one of the hearings was today. I do know that Richard Pearson, who is I got some notes here in front of me, he's from the Illinois State Rifle Association. He says that he expects to achieve a preliminary injunction in this particular lawsuit. He also expects the state of Illinois will appeal and appeal the case to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals, and which will ultimately make its way probably up to the U.S. Supreme Court. It's looking for a preliminary injunction in the U.S. Court, Southern District of Illinois in East St. Louis, and that happened today. I would imagine it's going to take a little while to hear the final decision on this, but it's something that we got our eye on. And again, it's another Democrat state trying to violate the rights of their states, their citizens by, so-called assault weapons bans and and magazine capacity restrictions. It's the same old, same old. And what you and I were talking about earlier before we went on air is that, these things really just clog up the system. And this case is being argued against the rifles. I want to make sure I get it right. The Illinois State Rifle Association is arguing on the basis of the Bruin decision, the historical tradition and violation of Second Amendment rights. It's all the same stuff. They just keep bringing in new laws when they have the Democrat majorities in these state houses, and they just bring in new laws, create new laws, and we have to go in and fight them again. It's this constant revolving door of unconstitutional laws that we end up fighting. And what happens, like in New York, and what's probably going to happen here in Illinois, is that even when this stuff does get overturned, they appeal it and they drag their feet, and it goes on forever. It's the most frustrating thing, Paul. And I know you agree, because you just said earlier, it's frustrating as hell, because we know we're in the right, the courts know we're in the right, but yet the states continue to put things in place. Go ahead.
What's going to happen is they're going to lose. They're going to appeal. They're going to lose. They're going to appeal again en banc. They're going to lose. Then they'll appeal to the Supreme Court, where they will lose, and then they'll write a law that's just this much less of an infringement. And they're going to have to fight lawsuits on that and lose and appeal and lose and appeal and lose. It's going to be years, but we're going to win.
And in the meantime, a lot of these provisions of this law are supposed to start becoming enacted between now and October, I think it was. So in the meantime, people could become felons.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Let me get a comment in.
Even after the courts say it's unconstitutional. Terrible.
George Geller says, seems like we're always on. We are. We're on the side of freedom. We're always playing defense. George, I'm going to say post-Bruin, we're actually playing offense. We're the ones that are taking the states to court and saying, look, this is unconstitutional. We're the ones that are knocking the laws down post-Bruin. And I think that's going to continue. We're going to continue legally on the legislative side. We're going to continue knocking down these laws after Washington just today passed, or actually yesterday they passed their Washington Senate passed their assault weapons ban, and we'll get to that story here in a bit. All these laws are going to get knocked down. It's just a matter of time. But again, it's so frustrating in the process, because even the people that are passing them know, look, this is going to come back. It ain't going to stick, but they do it anyway.
Yeah, they do it to frustrate, real Americans and gun owners and just try to make it impossible. I agree with that comment, though. It does feel like we're always on defense because we're always in court. But then I also agree, Paul, you make a great point, that we are on offense as well, because because of that Bruin case, I'm telling you, and I knew it. As soon as I read historical tradition, I was like, this is a great thing. And nobody was really talking about it yet, but we knew that when Judge Clarence Thomas wrote that gun laws must meet historical tradition, I knew that this was going to be the one thing that we could finally fight back with, because none of these gun laws, none of the gun laws that we experience on a daily basis meet historical tradition. Tell me one.
Yeah, let me get two more comments up, because this Mike White nails it. This is exactly what it feels like. Here we go again with the old whack-a-mole. Yeah. And that is exactly the way it feels, man. You knock down one, two more pop up, and you're hammering at those. And while you're hammering at the other two, there's three more after that that pop up. And let me get this one up.
Go. Well, let me just make one quick point. This is why it's so important. This is why it's so important to support your national gun rights organizations, whichever ones you prefer, and Second Amendment Foundation is a fantastic organization to donate your money to. I happen to like GOA as well, and there's others, Firearms Policy Coalition, there's others too. But Alan Gottlieb had some. I just recently today read some comments about this particular case in Illinois, and Alan always nails it. He is absolutely the best, one of the smartest guys in the industry. So yeah, support your national gun rights organizations, and also support your state gun rights organization, because like in this case in Illinois, if these guys don't have the funds, they can't take this stuff to court. And also same with New York. If it wasn't for New York State Rifle and Pistol, we might not have that Bruin case.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. Yeah, if you live in a state where gun rights are under attack, Illinois, New Jersey, New York, Hawaii, Washington, Oregon,
California, Massachusetts, Connecticut.
Yeah, exactly. We can name off about 14 of them, but join your local gun rights organization. That grassroots, that very state level is going to be the ones that both in the legislature and in the courts are going to be the initial ones filing. Let me get this up from Pete over at Gun Websites. The cost of liberty is eternal vigilance. We have many wins. Education and awareness are the answers to the long game. In my opinion, these all depend on lack of awareness of gun reality. And Pete, thank you. And Pete is one of the ones that does this a lot for me and for others. The way you can help spread awareness is to share shows like this. Share shows like Dan's The Loaded Mic. Share these shows out in your social media. Tell your friends about them. This is where you get the real information about guns and gun laws and what works and what doesn't.
Yeah. Yep.
Get a couple more. George, let me get one from George on the YouTube side and then one from Roderick on the Facebook side. George says, if only our rights were protected by something like the U.S. Constitution.
I know, you would think, huh?
Right. And then finally from the Facebook side here, Roderick says, some politicians swear to uphold the Constitution and some swear at the Constitution. Yeah, I've been reading a lot lately about people who want to, and this is mainly journalists who opine that we need to and try to find ways to destroy the Second Amendment, repeal the Second Amendment. Look, there are right now, as we speak, 27 states that have permitless or constitutional carry. You would have to get, I want to say 30, it's in the 30s of states to agree that the Second Amendment needs to go away. That will never, ever, ever happen. 3/4 of the states need to say that we don't need, so 35 would need to say we don't need a Second Amendment. And with 26, soon to be 27 constitutional carry states, you'll never get that through, ever.
Right, never going to happen. Let me just, with respect to what I was talking about before with Second Amendment Foundation, there is a quote from Alan Gottlieb, Second Amendment Foundation founder and executive vice president. Alan said, with respect to this Illinois case, he said, quote, Illinois has banned the future sale, importation, purchase, delivery, and manufacture of the most popular rifle in the United States, along with their standard capacity magazines. People who already own such firearms must now register their guns with the state police. Allen went on to say, this ban violates the constitutional rights of Illinois gun owners, and we intend to prove it in court. And I'm sure they will do that.
Yeah, they will. And as I said, that's almost a foregone conclusion. ISRA works closely with Second Amendment Foundation. We do help push their lawsuits through. We help fund their lawsuits. Richard Pearson has spoken many times at Gun Rights Policy Conference. I expect him to do so again. Yeah, I expect this to.
I had a nice conversation with Alan in Vegas, and it was just a couple of us, two or three of us, sitting there at a table, just talking and chatting and yucking it up. And the man is the man is very knowledgeable. I got to tell you that he's got so much stuff in his brain as far as gun law goes. I couldn't believe. So just highest respect to Alan Gottlieb and Second Amendment Foundation for what he does.
All right, I want to move on to our next story here. We burned up half our time just on this first one. We may burn up all the rest of it on this second one because this is just outrageous, Dan. The city of Morgan Hill, California. If you're not familiar with Morgan Hill, and I wasn't until earlier today, I drove truck for 20 years, been all throughout the state, never heard of Morgan Hill, California. Well, Morgan Hill, California is just south of San Jose on the 101 freeway. It's not a huge city, but they did make news today when state lawmakers, this is coming off of the website Liberty Park Press. It's written by, get this pulled up here just a second, written by one of my bosses, Dave Workman. But I'm going to go ahead and read some of his story here. When state lawmakers removed a cap on carry permit fees in 2019, gun rights advocates warned something like this would happen. The Democrat-controlled City Council of Morgan Hill, California, last week gave a 4-1 thumbs-up vote for a plan that establishes a fee scale for city-issued concealed carry permits. As the city had fundamentally a no-issue policy when it came to such CCW licenses, the Morgan Hill Police Department has none currently in circulation. Those who sought a permit from the city were left to prove a subjective special need to authorities. However, with the U.S. Supreme Court's Bruin decision last year, upending such proper cause no-issue permitting schemes, Morgan City's council got cracking on a fee schedule that instead sets an almost impossibly high bar to obtaining a locally issued CCW. A staff report approved by the council on April 5th holds that the cost for a permit would be around $1,336 per applicant. That would include $131 in miscellaneous city fees, $150 psychological test, 16 hours of firearm safety training at an approved course for approximately $350, and $20 for fingerprints. The real zinger, however, is $800 for the concealed carry permit itself. The council maintains the $800 processing fee is needed to cover the 6 hours of review for each permit. A community service officer, $419.52. Another hour review by a police sergeant, $167.81. An hour under the eyes of a police captain, $209.56. For now, renewals for the CCW would be a bargain price of just $227. I'm telling you, Dan, I need to be a community services officer in this city to get paid $419.52 an hour.
This is a city council.
Yeah.
Who the hell do they think they are? This is unbelievable. These are city council members. This is so ridiculous that they think they can violate the rights of the people who employ them. It's shocking that they would even have the arrogance to try to do something like this. Unbelievable.
Yeah, what it is. This is exactly, and I'm going to go ahead and get Mike White's comment up. He says poor folks need not apply. This is, Dan, a poll tax. You have to pay a tax to utilize your rights.
Yeah, how does this not infringe on your Second Amendment right?
Oh, it absolutely does infringe on your Second Amendment right.
I know. It's just so blatantly obvious, and the arrogance of these knuckleheads in this city council. So So I don't know. So what's the end result of this thing? Did this thing pass, or what's the deal?
It's becoming this. If you want a concealed carry permit and you live in this city, it is now the law. You're going to have to shell out $1,300.
So now this comes down to the county sheriff's department, I would imagine, to enforce it. I mean, it's the pistol permit department that would be collecting the money, right? And that's usually the county sheriff. Are they going to go ahead and go through with this? Are they going to allow
the county? Well, they have no say because they do not issue the. Let me go back to. They do not issue the permits for that city. The county does not. It's inside the city. The city handles it themselves, and so yeah, your only option is the city if you live inside city limits, and so you're gonna have to shell out $1,300 or sue the city. And I cannot believe somebody's not going to be doing that again post haste. Right. California State Rifle and Pistol Association, I've not heard from them, but I would imagine there's going to be a lawsuit in the not too distant future over this. Again, it's straight up pay to play, and even more blatant than let me go back, than the Cupertino. Let me go.
If our town council or city council ever tried something like this, they would catch hell from the residents. I just wonder what the city council meetings, the public meetings were like around this. But that's the problem when you get a bunch of Democrats and you give them control and you give them the majority. This is what you're going to get.
Yeah, and
I don't know anything about this town. I don't know if this city is primarily Democrat voters or what, but
it's just. I mean, I'm looking at it on Google Maps right now. It is just south of San Jose, another city that is very close to there. You might have heard of Cupertino, California. Home of Apple is right there. It's part of Santa Clara County, which is where the former sheriff of Santa Clara was, she was convicted of corruption. She left office the day before the conviction came down. It's standard operating procedure for this area, and so
when all these liberals get together and they ban all the good people from carrying pistols and guns, and then they get attacked by some maniac, like we saw recently in the school and the bank, and the good people who would otherwise be carrying, who could protect even these knucklehead liberals, they're not there.
Yeah.
At what point do these ignorant people realize that those pistol permits and pistols in the hands of real Americans, conservatives, gun owners, at what point do they realize that that's a good thing? Because those people, the conservatives and the gun owners, will actually even protect you crazy knucklehead liberals. But they're going to have to find that out the hard way, I guess.
Yeah. The other thing is going to do well. First of all, the criminals don't care because they're not getting a permit, so they're going to be carrying anyway. I'm going to imagine there are going to be a few people that are going to say, "I just can't afford it, but my safety is too important. I'm going to carry without a permit." However, if they come across a robbery or criminal activity, are they going to draw their gun? Are they going to intervene? Are they going to save lives? No, they're not, because they're carrying without a permit. They do not want to get caught.
And you know what the ironic thing about all this is? It's those stupid people who who support this Democrat city council and support this kind of legislation, if they were under attack, the ironic thing about this is they would be begging for someone to come along with a gun and save their lives. And that's the ironic thing about all of this. They push and they support and they put these stupid people in office to because of their politics. When it comes down to life or death, they would beg for help.
Oh, yeah, they absolutely would. Let me get a comment in from the Facebook side. Roderick says, my first Indiana CCW cost $5 in 1981. Fingerprinting costs were extra, no training required, but recommended. Roderick, my first South Dakota carry permit, no training required, no cost for fingerprints. It was $10, and it was good for 4 years. Now, in South Dakota, it doesn't cost me a penny, including fingerprints. The only thing it cost me was a training class, which was $100 for my enhanced CCW, and I can carry now in 37 states. FBI background check and fingerprinting were all free. The only thing it cost me was $100 for the training class. So go over to Pete's comment here at websites. There would be fewer criminals and fewer crimes when victims are armed, not in gunfights, but in criminals finding other means when there are lethal consequences of their actions. Guns prevent crimes. Pete, you're dead on there. How many people would go duck hunting if the ducks shot back?
Yeah, I talk about these statistics all the time. We have studies that show defensive gun use numbers are just off the charts. So many lives are saved because good people are carrying, and it's just guns are a net positive. Guns are good, and
well,
I don't know.
I do want to move on. We got one more story. We've only got a couple minutes left, but one story that I would consider good news is in Oklahoma County is getting set to allow county employees to carry on the job. This is Manatee County, Oregon. The Manatee County Commission voted unanimously Tuesday to adopt a new policy allowing county employees to carry firearms at work. Commissioner James Satcher first made the proposal last May, but the updated policy was delayed by a legal review and a recent change in the county's management. Following the adoption of the rule, staff will be allowed to carry guns in the coming weeks. As of Tuesday afternoon, a written policy was not ready for public review, according to Bill Logan, the county's information outreach manager. And this includes people like county assessors, people in the county clerk's office, people. Look, this is just this county in Oklahoma saying, look, your basic human right extends when you're at work. You can protect yourself when you're at work.
Yeah, no, it should go without saying. We shouldn't even be praising this kind of thing. This should be the normal behavior.
Oh yeah. Individual businesses not. I mean, the majority of us, thank goodness, do not work for the government. Okay, the majority of us work for either a private company or, well, myself, I work for the Second Amendment Foundation. My paycheck is paid for them, and they encourage me to carry, of course. However, private companies can say yes or no, that they're a private entity, they can do what they want. Government, however, should never say, no, you cannot protect yourself when you're at work, or they should provide the protection, one or the other.
Right.
So, all righty, man. Well, that does it for the stories we've got for today. But let's, if on our way out, if you would please, would you plug your book series and your radio show, man?
Sure. The book series is Good Gun, Bad Guy, and it's right above my shoulder. It's a 3-book series, and talks about the anti-gun mindset, talks about how we can understand them so we can defeat them. It talks about the media's strategies, and it talks about the big gun grab and why government wants an unarmed population. The book series has been getting great reviews, and everybody seems to love it, and people are popping up out of the woodwork commenting on it that I wouldn't even imagine have purchased the book series. So go to goodgunbadguy.com and check it out, goodgunbadguy.com. It's also, the first book is also on Audible. If you like audiobooks, go to Audible and search for Good Gun, Bad Guy. The Loaded Mic webcast every night on OpsLens at 8 p.m. Eastern, or you can go to loadedmic.com.
All right, very cool. On my end, I want to invite everybody to come back tomorrow for another edition of The Bullet, and I've got to pull up my calendar. And it'll load here eventually. Yeah, tomorrow's Matt Mallory for the Daily Bullet. Friday is I'm looking forward to this one. Tom Wall's Training Friday this week. One of the topics we've got is if you decide you're a new gun owner, you decide you're going to be carrying, who needs to know and who doesn't need to know that you're carrying. We'll get into that on Friday. And that's going to do it for us today. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you for commenting. Podcast listeners, thank you for listening. We're going to set it aside here, and we'll see you next time.